Most men lie about their regrets. I did too, until now. Not deliberately, not with bad intention. They just package them, sand the edges down, turn them into lessons that sound wise and resolved and finished. I did that for years. Today, I am not doing that. Today, I am going to tell you the actual regrets, not the packaged versions, not the ones that make me sound like a man who learned something and grew. The raw ones, the ones that still have edges on them, the ones I have never been able to fully sand down no matter how many years I put between me and them. My name is Harold Voss. I am 84 years old. My heart is running at 38%. I have been alive for more than 8 decades, and I have made more mistakes than I can count, and I have made peace with most of them. But not all of them. Not these. Before I go any further, I want to ask you something. What is the regret you have never said out loud? Not the one you tell people when they ask. Not the cleaned-up version with the lesson attached to the end. The real one. The one that sits somewhere specific inside you and does not move. Write it in the comments if you are brave enough. Just one line. You do not have to explain it. I will go first. Regret 1. I never told my father I loved him. Not once. In 35 years of having a father, I never said those words to him directly. Face to face, without something in between. He died in 1979. I was 35 years old. We had a complicated relationship. He was a hard man, cold in the way certain men of his generation were cold. He did not say it either. That is the thing I told myself for years as a way of making it acceptable. He did not say it, so neither did I. We were the same kind of men. We communicated the same way. That is not a reason. That is an excuse dressed up as a reason. He was my father. He worked a factory floor for 30 years so I could go to university. He drove 4 hours in a snowstorm once to help me move into my first apartment, and did not complain once and did not stay for dinner because he had work in the morning. That was love. I knew it was love. I just never said the word back. I stood at his grave in November of 1979 in a coat that was not warm enough for the weather, and I thought about all the times I could have said it. There were hundreds of them. I chose none of them. That is not a lesson. That is not something I grew from. That is just a thing I did not do that I can never undo. And I am 84 years old and it still has edges on it. Regret 2. I missed David's childhood, not the big moments. I was at the graduation. I was at the wedding. I showed up for the things that could be pointed to as evidence of a present father. I missed the small ones, the Tuesday evenings, the homework at the kitchen table, the conversations that do not have a title or a milestone attached to them. The kind of ordinary, unremarkable time that turns out, looking back, to be the only time that actually builds something real between a father and a son. David is 53 years old now. He is a good man, a better father than I was. He calls on Christmas and on his birthday. 2 calls a year. I used to tell myself that was a result of distance, of David being busy, of life getting in the way. It is not that. It is the accumulated result of hundreds of Tuesday evenings I was not home for. Hundreds of conversations I was too distracted to finish. Hundreds of small moments where he needed a father and got a man who was thinking about work. He learned not to need me. I taught him that. A child does not stop needing his father. He just stops showing it when he learns that showing it produces nothing. That is the part that keeps coming back. Not that I was absent. That he adapted to my absence so completely that by the time I was finally present, there was no longer a gap shaped like me in his life that needed filling. He had filled it himself. With other things, other people, his own resilience. I am proud of his resilience. And I grieve that I made it necessary. I want to stay on this for a moment because I think it is the most important thing I will say today about fatherhood. There is a specific kind of grief that comes from watching your child become self-sufficient in the exact areas where you failed them. David learned to process things alone because coming to me with things produced either a solution or a distraction. He learned to celebrate things quietly because my attention was limited and he did not want to use it on something as ordinary as being happy. He learned to need very little from me because needing things from me was unreliable. He learned all of this before he was 12 years old. And the cruel irony is that those are the qualities I am most proud of in him now: his self-reliance, his emotional steadiness, his ability to sit with difficult things without needing to immediately resolve them. I am proud of those things, and I know exactly where he learned them. He learned them in the space where his father should have been. That is the thing about raising children. They do not just absorb what you give them. They absorb what you withhold. They grow into the shapes your absence creates. They become the people that your limitations required them to become. David became a remarkable man in the shape of my absence. I am grateful for who he is, and I am sorry for what made him that way. Both of those things are true at the same time. They will always be true at the same time. Here is my first question for today. Think about the person in your life who has adapted most completely to your absence or your distraction or your unavailability. Not the person who complains about it, the person who stopped complaining. That person. How long ago did they stop showing you they needed you? Write a number in the comments. Just the number of years, nothing else. Regret 3. I let my marriage become a management system. I have talked about this before in other ways, but I have never said it this directly. At some point in our marriage, I stopped experiencing Margaret and started managing her. I managed her emotions. When she was upset, I identified the problem and proposed a solution. When she was sad, I gave her reasons why things were not as bad as they seemed. When she needed to be heard, I gave her a response instead. I was efficient. I was practical. I was present in the way that a project manager is present. I was not there. There is a version of love that is really just competent administration. You show up, you provide, you solve the problems, you keep the structure intact, you do not betray, you do not abandon, you maintain. I maintained our marriage for 30 years. And Margaret spent 30 years being maintained by a man who loved her but had forgotten how to feel that love in real time and let her feel it too. She told me once in the kitchen in 1998 that she had been lonely inside our marriage for 11 years. I said I was tired. I went to bed. That is not a lesson. That is not something I resolved. That is a moment that happened and cannot unhappen, and that I have thought about more than almost any other moment in my life. She forgave me eventually. But I have not fully forgiven myself. Not because I think unforgiveness is useful or healthy, but because some things should not be fully forgiven. Some things should retain just enough weight that you carry them honestly, rather than setting them down and walking away clean. That is one of them. Regret 4. I never became the version of myself I could see from the inside. This one is harder to explain than the others. There is a version of Harold Voss that I have been able to see clearly my entire adult life. Not a fantasy version, not a perfect version, just a more complete one. A man who was fully present with the people he loved, who did not need the armor, who could sit in a room and be still and be himself without needing to be useful or productive or impressive to justify the space he was taking up. I could see that man. I could feel him sometimes, in flashes, early mornings before the day required anything, late evenings after everyone had gone to bed, moments of genuine quiet where he surfaced briefly and I recognized him. And then the day would start again and he would go back under. For 50 years he went back under every morning when the alarm went off. I built a good life, a real life, a life with genuine things in it. But I built it at a slight distance from the version of myself that was most fully alive. And I do not know how to account for that distance. I do not know how to calculate what it cost the people around me that the man they got was slightly less present than the one I could feel from the inside. That is the regret I have never been able to package into a lesson. Because there is no lesson in it. Just a man who could see himself clearly and kept choosing the lesser version anyway, every morning, for 50 years. Here is my second question for today. Is there a version of yourself you can see from the inside that you are not currently living as? Not a perfect version, not an ideal, just a more honest one, a more present one, a version that exists in the quiet moments before the day starts and then goes back under when the noise begins. You know exactly what I mean. Write yes or no in the comments, just yes or no. Regret 5. I waited too long to say the things that needed saying. This is the one that covers all the others in some way. Every regret I have, at its root, is a version of this one. I did not tell my father I loved him because I was waiting for a better moment, a less awkward moment, a moment where it would not feel strange or forced or unlike the kind of men we were. I was not present for David's childhood because I was waiting until I had more time, until the project was finished, until things settled down, until I was in a position to be the father I intended to be. I managed Margaret instead of loving her because real love required saying things that made me feel exposed, and I was waiting until I felt less exposed, less frightened, more ready. I kept the better version of myself under because living as him required saying things about what I actually felt and needed and feared. And I was waiting until it felt less dangerous to say those things. I was always waiting for the right moment that never came as the right moment, because the right moment is always this one, not the one where you have prepared enough, not the one where the conditions are perfect and the words are ready and you feel certain it will land the way you intend. This one, the ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday one. The one where nothing is special and nothing is prepared and you are just two people in a room and one of you has something to say. Say it. I am 84 years old and my heart is running at 38%, and I have learned this so completely that it no longer feels like wisdom. It just feels like breathing. Say the thing, right now, today. Not because tomorrow is not coming. Maybe it is. Probably it is. But because the version of you that says it today is more alive than the version that waits. And being more alive is the only thing that actually matters. Write the name of the person you need to say something to in the comments. Just the name. You do not have to write what you need to say. Just write the name, and then go say it. That is all I have got today. Not lessons, not a framework, not a numbered system with a takeaway at the end. Just 5 things I actually regret, with the edges still on them, because you deserve the honest version, not the packaged one. Leave me a comment. Tell me your real regret, the one with the edges still on it. I read every single one. And if someone you know is waiting for the right moment to say something important, send this to them. Not tomorrow. Now. Not finished yet. Not even close.